Hi everyone, in this video we are going to be handling the user registration and the login logout functionality in ASP.NET Core using the Microsoft Identity Platform. I am also going to show you how to assign different roles to your users, such as an admin role, a manager role, or whatever you want to name them. So just make sure to follow along. So firstly, let's just create a new project in Visual Studio. Let's just select the MVC template and we'll just enter a name for the project, like Authentication project. And then in the authentication type, we need to select individual accounts. So let's wait until the project loads. And here we can see that because of the authentication type that we selected, we have a data folder created with a context in it. And if we go to app-settings.json, we have there a default connection string specified for the database connection. And most importantly, in program.cs, we have a service of the identity specified. So here we can see it here, and this basically is the service that we need to do the authentication type, to do the whole authentication in ASP.NET Core. So let's just run the project firstly to see what it looks like by default. And here we can see that we have a register and a login button in the navigation bar. But firstly, so that we store the users, so before registering any users there, we should go to the database and create a database connection so that when we create a new user, it will be stored in our database. So I just need the server name here. So I'm opening up the server, SQL Server Studio. Okay, so I'm just copying it down here, the name of the server. Pasting it there and just setting here up, just writing a name for the database. Click OK. Okay, and we just need to copy here the connection string in the properties window, and we're going to be substituting the default connection that the project had with our database that we created. So basically it's better to create your own database for the name and for all of that, in order so you specify your own name and the type of database. And here we can just try encrypt. We can set encrypt to false because we don't have a password when we connect our project to the database. And in the services in program.cs, by default, the require conferred account is set to true. But in our case, so when we just want to try this identity functionality, we can just set it to false, so that when we register an email account, it doesn't have to be confirmed. Now, all of this we're going to be needing just to add the migrations to the database. And then to update the database. Okay, so if we go to our Server Explorer and we open up the database, the tables, we can see all of these tables are automatically created. So we have there the users tables, the roles tables, and a bunch of other tables. So we can just test this out firstly. We can go here and create an email address and a password. So basically we're just creating a user. And now that we are registered, we can see on top that we have hello and the name of our email there. This is usually what you see even when you log into a Gmail or some other kind of application. So I forgot to mention that you need some Nugget packages before, which I had installed because of the previous projects. So the SQL Server package and the tools package for the database, but most importantly, the Microsoft Identity package, which is essential to our project. So when we go to the controllers, if we go to the controllers, there we can test out the whole login functionality. So if we write authorize on top of each action, each method in a controller, we basically are saying here, okay, so I need to import something on top before. Okay, so basically what we are doing here is we are saying that to go to the index tab, you have to be authenticated. So now, we can go because we have an account, we are logged in. But if we log out here, we can go to the privacy, but we can go to the home tab. So this is basically what it means. So we can go, if we put the authorized tag above any method or class, we cannot enter them without being logged in. So another important topic that I wanted to handle in this video was the roles. So if we want to make a user, to make him an admin or a manager, in order for him to have different kind of duties that we can select to him. So we can need to go to the service that was added for the identity functionality. We can go there and add roles, identity role. And on the bottom of the page, before we run the application, we need to create a scope. We need to create a variable of scope. And we need to store in it a scope service. And then in another variable that I'm calling here role manager. So basically in this variable, we're just gonna be inputting a service that allows us to specify roles in it. So role manager, and it includes the identity role. And here we just need to create a variable of roles. And here we can have an array. We can create an array with the names of the roles that we want to specify. So just as a string, you specify the name of the roles that you want. So I'm writing on admin and like a manager, because any other user is by default a user, is considered as a user. So okay, so now we need a loop to loop through each role. So basically what we are doing here, we are saying that if the roles that we have specified in the line below do not exist, then we need to create them in the database. So since they do not exist in this current time, we are just storing them right now to the database. So create async new identity role. And it takes as an argument the role. So basically all these lines here just create two identity roles for us, and we can check this out when we run the project. And we can open up the Server Explorer view, Server Explorer. We can go to the ASP.NET user roles. Okay, so this is for, we can need to go to ASP.NET roles. And here we have the manager and the admins. If we grab the ID of for example, the manager, and we go to the user roles table, ASP.NET user roles, we here can specify, so we can connect one user with one role, and if we connect our user that we created earlier, the Sean, so if we grab his ID and input it in a table, in a row with the role ID, we are basically, what we are doing here is just making Sean a manager. This is the way to do it using the database. And how we can know that this worked is that we can go to the controller, and in the authorized tags, we can write there a role. Role equals manager, for example. This could be admin. So this method, the index method, can be accessed only by users that have the role of the manager. And for example, the privacy tab can only be accessed by the users that have the admin role. So now we are logged in with Sean, which is a manager. So we can access the home, the index page, but as you can see, we cannot access the privacy page because the privacy page had to be accessed by an admin, by a user that has a role of the admin. So here I'm going to show you another way to make a user as a role. So to set up a role for a user. So the first one, we set up Sean as a manager. We did this using the database, but now I'm just going to use the code. And I just copied down what I had above. I'm just changing a few things. I'm making a variable as a user manager. And I'm deleting this. I don't need this here. And here I need to write identity user. So I need to specify an email. Firstly, like admin@gmail.com. And the password. So each time the application loads, in case this email that we have written here is null, then we are going to be creating a user. So a user equals new identity user. And this actually only happens the first time we run our application when we haven't created this admin user. So, and then we will set the user's username equals to its email. And the email, of course, to the email variable that we had above. And in this line here, we are just creating the user and we here need to add as an argument the password of the user. And the next thing that we need to do is just to set the role to that user, so to make him an admin. So until this line, we have only created the user. Now we're going to be adding a role to it, and we will set the role to an admin. So all this did is what we did in the previous example when we created the manager, but we did that in the database. This we are doing with code. It's exactly the same thing. You could choose either one. Now if we go here, okay, so we can create it. Okay, so we can access the home, but not the privacy tab because we have a manager. If we log in with our admin account, so if we log in with our admin account, this means that we can access the privacy tab, but of course we cannot access the home tab, which had to be accessed by a manager. So this seems to work. The admin accesses the privacy tab. So this all works here. Another way to specify certain things for an admin or for a role of some user is we can write code in the view pages as well. So for example, on top of the page, first we need to use the Microsoft ASP.NET Core identity. And for example, if an admin is logged in, we can say there, hi admin or something. So we need to inject in the view, in the CS.HTML files, the sign-in manager, which takes an identity user argument. And we need to also inject there the user manager, which takes also an identity user variable argument there. So by importing these three things, we can access here in the view pages, we can access the information that tells us if a user is an admin, a role, or whatever. So we can just make an if loop here and check here the role is in a role. So the role of the user is a manager. Okay, so we'll just make a header here, an H2 header that tells, for example, welcome manager. And if the user is not a manager, if it's a user or whatever, we'll just write down here. I'm just copying it down and just write here welcome user or something. Okay, I just need to run the project now. Okay, I have an admin logged in here, so I'm just logging out. Okay, I can check it with an admin as well. So if I go to the home, okay, I can't access the home page, so I'm just logging out. I will log in with the Sean account. It should say welcome manager. So this is how we can access this data in the view pages as well. One thing I forgot to show you is that in the controllers, we can add there in the authorized tags multiple roles, so like this. For example, the privacy can now be accessed even by a manager. So this is a manager account, and it can access, the privacy tab can be accessed by both accounts. This was it for this video. These were the main concepts of Microsoft Identity Platform and how we can log in users there, register them, and how we can set up roles for our users. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you in the next video.